So I'm going to attempt to do a little video here where I'm going to turn the camera around. So let's just see how this goes. Um, I've been chatting. It's so interesting in the coaching that I do. So I don't advertise it, but I do on occasion take on some one-to-one private clients, and I've had a lot of people come to me in recent times, probably more than ever before, looking for private coaching, and many of them are successful business owners who are at a point in their lives where perhaps with COVID, perhaps having this time alone, being in relationship with themselves in a way that they haven't had to be in the past, it's gotten them to a point where they're starting to contemplate and think about what's next for them. And often they come to me because they want me to help them get the clarity of what's next as they begin to contemplate a transition in their lives. And there's lots of things that I've spoken about in the past with videos. One of the big things is how attached we are to the things we do, the way in which we do them, our identity, wrapped up in all that kind of stuff, which I've done lots of talking about and will continue to do so. But I wanted to share something today that is just really, really simple but profoundly important, really profoundly important. And it's a pattern that I'm seeing more and more and more and more with people. So I'm going to attempt to do this in a particular way. I just happened to be here at the property, and my wife very kindly brought some tea and a picnic and so on and so forth. So excuse me that you're not going to see my face. In fact, it's probably a welcome break for many of you. But I wanted to present this idea that this water bottle here represents, what you do right now. If you're somebody that, has a successful business of sorts, or you've been in a business for a particularly long time and you're just starting to contemplate, your energy is starting to wane. And when that happens, a number of things happen. We start to kind of double down on this narrative that we love what we do. We start telling ourselves these narratives in addition to that you love your team, and while there's parts of your business that you don't like, you start to kind of almost create these narratives that solidify this idea that you should hold on to this in some capacity. And one of the many reasons that people get very, very tired in their businesses, they overstay, or sometimes that they create something from a deep creative space, but then over a period of time, their role changes from one of creativity to managing and running the business, which is not what they want to do, and it's not really amplifying in any way, shape, or form their gift in the world. But then comes along this shiny object, and this is something that is percolating, something that's on the peripheral, something that feels perhaps familiar, something that you've played with before and touched on before in some respects, and it's not just a shiny object, which is often synonymous with taking our focus away, but it's something that nonetheless is kind of starting to distract us a little bit from the main thing that we do. And maybe we start to dabble in this, and this shiny object maybe takes a little bit of our focus, or maybe it starts to do really well and starts to expand into something, and before you know it, we start telling ourselves that this is our new passion, this is the thing we're really excited about, and we start to rationalize and justify that really we start to need to make a transition from here to here. But here's the challenge. The challenge is that, in my experience, that perhaps we've come to a point in the road where this is not what we need to do anymore, but that this is too soon to imagine what's next, because you're still holding on to this entity here, this energy here. And one thing that entrepreneurs it scares the shit out of them. Like, they're just almost like their skin starts to crawl, for some, not all, is when you present, what about transitioning away from this into nothing? Like, what if that you just took this space after this project, if you can afford to do so, like if you're in a position where you can do an exit that allows you to do that. And it's often a very scary thing, but in reality, it's not just the fear of the unknown, it's actually the fear of walking down the street and bumping into somebody and not being able to say you're still the CEO, the founder of such and such. It's a lot easier to be able to say, no, just so you know, I'm now the CEO of this shiny object here, Inc. or Limited. But really the bigger point is this. This is obviously very obvious. You've seen all of this before. But here's my experience. It's not necessarily what we're doing right now. It's not even necessarily this. If you think about this in the context of books, this is the book that you think will sell. There's nothing wrong with that. This is the book you've been told you should write because many people have asked you. But I do believe that all of us have a book inside of us that lies outside of both. It doesn't mean we should write that book first, but if we don't write that book at some point in our life, we are going to end up with some degree of regret or remorse about never getting to it. And business is the same. So my message today is this. Perhaps what you're doing right now is not for you. And this is a job or a business. Maybe it's not the shiny object. It's what lies beyond both. And that is my experience, that not just is this the thing that will light you up, but it's also the thing that will light the world up. And my friend David Cohen in Techstars coined the phrase "one last startup" on the back of One Last Talk and the movement. He was actually at the event and he came to me afterwards and said, "What about one last startup?" So I want to give him credit for this idea that if you had one last startup to create in the world, what would you do and who would you do it for? Because I do believe it's a wonderful frame. It's a beautiful way to give yourself the courage, the bravery to let go of the thing that doesn't serve you, not to get distracted by the shiny object, but to give, as we would say in Ireland, to give this a lash, to give it a go, to itch that scratch. Because you know what, honestly, we've nothing to lose in many respects. And I often find that when we give ourselves permission to do the things that lie just outside of our comfort zone to some extent, that's when we start to create things that are truly, truly magical in this world. Take care.